Isabel, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, and thank you for having me here. Really
I'm
excited to
super
get this
excited.
going.
I know.
Yeah, me
Well,
too.
when we spoke last, the fact that
So,
you are a travel blogger and content creator and influencer, like I told you before, is my job previous to real estate was managing big campaigns with people in your position. I think a lot of people that follow you really look up to you and aspire for your lifestyle.
yeah, I started off really just writing behind the scenes. It wasn't really like, oh, everything has to look pretty on Instagram kind of thing. So I really just started being a content writer. And then, yeah, I guess this whole thing just evolved into something that's more front facing, camera facing, and things like that.
Yes, and I find a lot of quote unquote influencers and content creators and travel bloggers. A lot of you started way before this like influencer world was a real thing. And I'm sure you guys never ever thought it could become something this big. A lot of people just got into it because they liked writing, like yourself, or liked taking pretty
Yeah.
photos. And now it's become this huge industry that many
Mhm.
people have made into a full-time career.
Yeah, that's true. I just wanted a place to document my travels. And then here and there, I would start reading about travel bloggers, and there are this few and far between travel bloggers that actually do it full time. And I've always aspired to be like that. But then I would always have this reality check that, oh, how many percent of these people actually get to do it full time? So I never really banged on being a full time blogger. I started blogging in 2015. And just over the years,
Wow.
it just sprung up and everything is possible now.
And everything's a lot I don't wanna use the word easier, but it's a lot more accessible,
More
and the
accessible.
tools are in place. I remember trying to start a blog in, like, 2012, and it's just, like, there was no such thing as Squarespace or anything like that. You had to
Yeah.
actually know code to set up any type of
Oh,
blog, remember?
wow. Yeah, I think so. And it looked really ugly.
Yes,
Difficult. Yeah.
very ugly, and it was just when Instagram was first becoming a thing, like, it was a
Mhm.
different world. A lot has changed in the last 10 years.
For sure. Yeah.
One question I want to ask you to start us off is no one aspires, especially years ago when you first started, to become a travel blogger or blogger in general. That wasn't really like a big word that got tossed around. So, how did you find yourself in this career at first? And did
Yeah.
you have any pushback in the beginning from friends and family and telling you to get like a real job or anything like that?
Yes, absolutely. So there was this, I really remember this vividly. It was not even a close friend, it was an acquaintance. And so when he asked me, oh, so when do you think you're getting a real job? And when are you going to move past blogging? I got really, I don't know, I think it wasn't meant to be offensive, but I took it really personally.
Of course,
And
I would too.
yeah, and then of course there's my parents, because growing up in a relatively Asian conservative mentality, my parents would always expect their children to, like have full-time stable jobs, get a stable salary. And so this,
Engineers, doctors.
yeah, get a degree, get a job, get a family and settle down. Yeah,
You've
yeah,
done quite
but
the opposite.
I know, like I'm the rebel, I'm the black sheep of the family. Yeah, and so I did have a couple of objections in the beginning. They always thought that, okay, maybe she's just like in her playtime years and just gallivanting around the globe for a couple of years. But eventually I did show them that, hey, you know how miserable I am in my full-time job. And hey, look at the amount of money I'm able to earn with blogging. It's almost comparable to my full-time job. And I'm so much happier and I get to travel. It's like there's no reason why I couldn't do what I'm doing.
Do you find when you showed them there was actual money to be made and you were making it, do you think their minds opened a little bit more to the idea?
Yeah, for sure. And also that I was opening up more opportunities, not just for myself to travel, but also for my family to travel. So with the travel blog, I'm able to work with companies, hotels, tour operators. And sometimes I even get a hosted press trip where they would cover my full expenses to go to a certain country. And yeah, occasionally I was able to extend that invitation, not just for myself, but for my parents as well. So they definitely were happy about that. And also the fact that, if I'm able to sustain a stable income from it, I guess part of their worry is appeased.
Of course. I mean, as parents, all they wanna make sure is that you have money, you're secure, you're happy,
Yeah,
and if you're able
yeah,
to show them something that's making you happy, that's also earning you an income so you can survive, I think
yeah.
that's all they want at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I mean, part of me was also quite insistent. I'll be like at home searching for flights every few weeks that I'm
You're
home.
addicted.
I know. So they couldn't really stop me. Yeah. But I mean, I
So
was responsible and I managed my expenses and finances well enough. So yeah, they didn't really have
you
much to
proved
worry.
yourself to them.
For
You're
sure.
I think what I gather from you is you proved to them that this is not just playtime anymore, like, I'm taking this really
Mhm.
seriously. And all parents can ask of that is that's all they can ask is
Yeah.
if you're taking it seriously enough, then they'll take you seriously.
Mhm.
You grew up in Singapore,
Yeah.
right? So at what point did you get up and just start going to travel? Did you go the typical university route or anything like that?
Yeah. So I did do my 4 years of university where most of us Singaporeans would do. And then from there, I did a semester long university exchange to Europe and France. Came back, got a full time job, but a part of me was always itching to travel. And because I already had my travel blog up and running and I was writing freelance. So occasionally I do get offers to travel overseas. And so I had to balance between taking leave from my full-time job and going to travel for work for my travel blog. And so I would hate to reject those opportunities because I've built my brand up to be a travel expert. But then on the other hand, I had full-time work responsibilities to fulfill. My turning point was when I got this offer to go to New Zealand on a fully paid trip, which is just really
Wow.
rare. Yeah, which is really rare. And so I was like, okay, I'm turning in my resignation letter. And then I just took up that opportunity to go to New Zealand. And from there, I did a 6 month working holiday in New Zealand. I've always wanted to try working overseas,
Mhm.
experience the work culture, the living culture, anywhere apart from Singapore, because I always thought it was really stifling.
What
But
do you
I
mean?
thought that like the work culture is such that if I mean you're expected to be on time or earlier and you couldn't really leave until your boss leaves. And it's just very bureaucratic as well.
And that lifestyle didn't resonate with you at all. Never did.
Yeah, it didn't. I've worked a couple of different jobs in agencies, in small businesses, and I felt like something was missing still.
Mm. What industry were you working in?
I was in PR, public relations,
Yeah.
and then I was also working in a social media agency.
The hours are
And
long.
I know, and the pay is shit.
Very shit. That's
I know.
exactly what it is. You're
Yeah.
hustling so much, and I'm sure it was probably interesting for you working on the PR corporate side, but also working on the opposite side of kind of the content creator, where PR people were reaching out to you a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They
You're
were
living
treating
a double life.
you know, I mean, if you had felt that double treatment, you would definitely hop on the content creator side.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because they treat content creators like princes.
Yes, like royalty.
Yeah.
Now, before you went full time with your travel blog, you said you were making enough money to match your salary at that time?
No, actually I didn't. So it was still a hobby to me. And so the chronological order was that I quit my job. I did a 6 month working holiday in New Zealand. And then I reached a crossroad again, having to decide between maybe dedicating my full time to the blog and giving it a chance to maybe work on it full time and possibly make a full time income or going back to the corporate life, which
That's a
is
fork in the road.
kind of a default. Yeah, so I decided to take a plunge and give myself 3 months to make this whole travel blogging work. And so I moved to Japan and really just spent the whole day working on the blog.
The type of person you are, you wanted to hold yourself accountable and give yourself 3 months, and what was gonna happen at that 3-month mark if it didn't pan out? Were you actually gonna go back to your corporate job or you were determined
Yeah.
to not?
I mean, it was a possibility. I had to admit at that time there weren't that many successful bloggers who could do it
Mhm.
full time yet.
What year
So
is this? 2015, 2016?
that was around 2018 then.
Okay.
Yeah. And also the other thing was because the more successful, bigger bloggers were all in Europe or in the US. And so there is not much audience in the Asian countries to
You didn't
really
have enough
make it.
examples of success. Like, so it's
Yeah.
hard to be blindly confident in yourself when there's no examples of people who have done it before.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, on the other hand, I didn't even try to doubt myself. I really just single mindedly wanted it to work. And so I worked really hard to make it happen and just to prove that travel blogging can actually be a career or you can earn a full time income from it.
Did you, have a lot of savings built up before you took that plunge? Just in case
Yeah.
something didn't work out?
Yeah, I did have savings, but I was determined not to touch them.
Mhm.
I wanted, yeah, I wanted to just earn off my blog.
That's
Mhm.
fair. And for someone who doesn't understand how travel blogging works and content creation, how do you earn an income from that?
Yeah, so I do have several sources. One of which is the ads that you see when you visit my blog. Those are passive, which means that I don't have to work actively to earn those monies. It's paid based on the number of views that I get on my blog. And the other option is different brands that want to work with my blog and get their brand mentioned on either my blog or my social platforms. So I would say these are two main income sources, and then followed by affiliate marketing, which is when I promote a certain hotel or tour company and somebody books through my link, I do get a small percentage.
And what I like about the industry that you're in and the type of work you do is it's something that the 9 to 5ers I think don't really understand is that how important it is to have multiple streams of income. Because
Yeah.
if one day some brand partnerships aren't panning out for you or are not moving quickly enough, you still have other sources of income. So you don't have all of your eggs in one basket. Whereas
Totally.
someone who works a 9 to 5, and I think a lot of people have recognized this in the past year with the pandemic and everything,
Yeah.
if you only have one source of income and that goes away in a second, you have no sources of income. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
power in having multiple sources of income because you have the power to decide if you take on more work, and if one goes away, you still have others. I think
Yes,
it's a
yes.
powerful position to be in.
Yeah, I totally have to agree with that. In the beginning stages of blogging, when I didn't have that much traffic, I did work on the site as a freelance writer as well, and also somebody managing social media for other clients.
And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize is from the outside in, when we look at someone like yourself, a travel blogger, you're literally traveling the world. You're posting all these beautiful photos. You don't even look
Mhm.
like you're working ever. But I'm sure you know and you live it, it's not as glamorous as some people think it is. And there's a lot of hard days, I'm sure. And to get to the point where you are now, it didn't happen overnight. So I'd love to know some of the struggles you deal with today, like as a travel blogger right now.
Yeah, I would say the biggest struggle that we have all experienced was the pandemic. Because in this travel industry, especially, travel literally went zilch. Like the traffic went down. Nobody wanted to pay for their brands to be featured on my blog. My traffic went down 75%. My income
Wow.
along with that went down as well. So it was really a struggle trying to get everything back up. So yeah, this is something that I definitely did struggle the first half of last year, I think. And it was definitely a wake up call for me as well because I really did bank almost everything on my travel blog. And so, yeah, I've learned to really diversify and be more active on different platforms and also pivot to doing more consulting work now with my digital marketing skills that I've gained with blogging and being online on different social platforms over the years.
Well, what I want to ask you is, and this is a whole reason why I started my podcast, even as those times you were struggling as a travel blogger in the beginning of the pandemic, because as you said, travel brands weren't spending money to promote their brands because no one was traveling. From
Yeah.
an outside perspective, did it still look like on Instagram that your life was really great? Would
Um,
anyone know that you were struggling?
well, yeah, that's true. Come to think of it, I don't think I really mentioned the fact that I was struggling to my followers. So
Why?
yeah, they probably wouldn't know. I don't know because it feels like my platform is meant to be a place to showcase travel inspiration.
Mm,
And so with that gone, there was just nothing to fill it up with.
yeah. We get
Yeah.
really caught up in being in a niche, and then I with any type of job, we're so in the job at all times that if something changes, it's hard to know how to pivot sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. And also it was a really touchy subject. Like you're not supposed to talk about travel because so many things are going on. So many people are getting sick because of the pandemic. And why are you celebrating travel? That sort of thing. So it was really touchy subject at the time.
So what type of content were you promoting?
I think I started becoming real with my audience. Like I used to just post travel guides and travel inspiration, but then I started putting up more posts about how to keep yourself productive at home, how to more health and wellness stuff. And I remember also posting something about how I'm surviving in Singapore because I was struggling. I had days where I was so unmotivated. I would wake up at maybe 10 in the morning, maybe do a couple of hours of work, and then nobody wanted to hire a freelancer also. So there really wasn't much work going around. And then I think I would just spend my evenings and my night Netflixing. And
Yeah, like
I
the
would,
rest of the world.
yeah, I would feel really lousy about myself. But then I also didn't have the energy or the inspiration to do anything else.
It's hard, especially when your platform is around travel and no one's traveling.
I know.
It's hard. It almost probably felt like you were going back to square one as like a new blogger again.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like asking myself, oh, what's the point of doing everything? It's not even working.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The question I have for you is how did you get hope to know that there was a light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I mean, with every pandemic, there is always a bounce back, and everyone would be so desperate to travel. And so I feel like we've reached this period where everyone is starting to hope to travel again, which is also evident with the traffic that I'm seeing the past month and the past 2 months. Everyone's getting hyped up. And so I was really banking on this hope that the travel traffic will spike back up again. So I was using that downturn to clear a lot of backlog, to do more of my blog audit stuff and sprucing everything up, clearing the cobwebs on my blog so as to prepare for this upturn.
So what I'm gathering from you is you knew it was gonna turn around eventually, and instead of kind of sulking around about your website traffic being down and basically your career being taken away from you, it sounds like you used the downtime to revamp everything, update the website, clean it all up because you knew travel is eventually going to come back. And
Mhm.
when it comes back, I'm ready for it. Like, I'm ready to do new
Yeah.
content. I'm ready for people to be excited about this. So it sounds like you like obviously there was times where you felt really down about yourself and felt a lot of days wasted, but it sounds like you really got yourself out of a rut a bit and used the downtime very effectively.
Yeah, you're right about that. And also the one revelation I did, the epiphany, I guess, was the pivoting point as with everyone else who experienced COVID was that perhaps maybe it's time for me to do something more than travel blogging, which is why I started creating a course. I thought maybe it's time for me to share my knowledge about blogging and about digital marketing since I've been blogging for over 5, 6 years. And so that was yeah, that was something that I started like it was like a project for me, starting everything from scratch, growing my audience of content creators and learning a new skill that is different from blogging. So which is creating courses and promoting them and really creating copies for them. So that was something that I got into my head and was really invested my time and effort in. So that was like a nice distraction and a nice project which up to today, it's almost been a year and I'm still continuously working to improve on that aspect as well.
You mentioned before that you're a huge introvert, and it's interesting to me that you are in front of the camera all the time and really promoting your lifestyle, but yet you're an introvert. There seems a bit of a like a mix up here. So a lot of people who are content creators are really extroverted people, love to be in front of the camera, love to promote and share their life, but Did it feel like there was a disconnect being an introvert and joining this space?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I've grown up, yeah, being to myself most of the time. I would have journals or become my best friend. But during the pandemic, I invested in a gimbal. And so I made a promise to myself that, okay, once travel is up and coming again, I'm going to take my gimbal and travel and start doing videos and doing more vlogging because that is kind of the next wave of content that people are gearing towards.
A lot of video
And
content,
so,
yeah.
yeah, and that, and also creating courses, I had to be in front of the camera and be confident and portray myself as an expert in a certain topic. So it did take a lot of hesitation, but I knew that it would help me progress in terms of self development wise. It would help me progress and become a more confident person. So
What would you say to someone that is an introvert, a shy person similar to yourself, but feels like there's something that they wanna promote out there or share to the world, but they don't have that confidence to get in front of the
mhm,
camera?
I would say to use words in the beginning and find your tribe of people who support your work. I mean, my circle of friends, they're not, everyone loves travel for sure, but travel as a job, I don't think they would resonate or I don't think they would care so much about it. So I turned to Facebook groups and I looked for other fellow travel bloggers who would support each other. And I guess that was what boosted my confidence to move forward in this area.
Another question that I have for you and that I find really fascinating. So first of all, growing up, was your family a big traveling family?
Yeah, we would travel at least once or twice a year,
Okay, all over the world or just around
most
Singapore?
mostly around Asia and Oceania, like in Australia and around Asia.
When you started traveling on your own as a single woman for the first time, what was your first destination? You said New Zealand, was that kind of the big one where when you did the 6 months
Europe,
visa? Okay, yeah, oh,
Europe.
right, sorry, through France and whatnot.
Yeah, in a way, I couldn't really stop.
And did you find yourself sitting at your, like, 9 to 5 PR job and just kind of, like, thinking, Is this really my life?"
Yeah, I know. I mean, part of my mind, I would accept that because that's what everyone is doing. They just escape during long weekends or during their leaves. And part of me kind of accepted it because I'm sure everyone loves to travel, but everyone has to have responsibilities and have an income. So I really believe that that was kind of a life that I had to accept no matter what.
Were you scared or was your family nervous when you first left and started traveling alone as a single, like, young woman? Were you nervous at all? Were they nervous?
I think I was more excited, but for sure, they did help me take precautions and all that. So some of the things that I would do was to keep in constant contact with them, share my travel plans with them. So even up till today, I still share my Google location with my family back
At all
home.
times?
Yeah, just
I
for
think
them to have a
great
peace of
idea.
mind. Yeah.
I live a couple provinces away, my mom likes to know where I am, and at some points, I've shared my location with her, and I'm like, "Okay, this is just, like, creepy. You do not need to know where I am at 3 AM in the morning on a Friday night."
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, they don't really check it that much.
Good.
Well, yeah, it's just for a sense of peace of mind.
I've heard so many horror stories of women traveling alone, and I've also read a lot of travel blogs of, like, how to be successful and safe when traveling alone. So, on top of sharing your Google location with family back home, like, do you have any other tips on how to be safe when you're traveling alone?
For the most part, being a solo traveler, you definitely have to be more vigilant, to be more street smart. You wouldn't go venture into dingy alleyways on your own or hang out late at night. So for me, when I was traveling alone, I would usually stay in the night. So I wouldn't go out to the bars and hang out with strangers. So that was my way of keeping safe. Also, when I do choose locations to visit, I'll make sure that those places are safe. For example, I've heard South America could be really difficult to travel as a solo female. So I would never choose destinations that are difficult to travel or if it might impose a risk to solo female travelers. I would choose to have a partner, a traveling companion before going to those places, like in South Africa, I did have a girlfriend, and in South America, I do have a travel buddy as well. But in the places where I traveled solo, it was to New Zealand, to Australia, and around Europe, which were all developed nations. And so I didn't really see myself in danger when I was traveling.
Is there any locations that you've traveled to or that you wouldn't recommend in terms of safety? Or is there ones that you would love to go to, but it's well known, not probably the best place to travel to for a young woman?
Yeah, I would say South America because, I mean, for one, you have to speak Spanish and it's also a bit more developing. And so I've heard stories that, I mean, I've heard both sides. I've heard that, oh, yeah, it's perfectly safe to just travel on your own. But I've also heard horror stories about it. So it really depends, I say.
But now that being said, you're in South America and right now.
Yeah, and I'm really glad to be surrounded by friends. So typically, I do try to revolve my travels around people I know.
Mhm. And
Like,
you've
for
met
example,
them throughout your travels?
yeah, some throughout my travels, some through travel blogging, some through being a follower of my blog. It really varies. Yeah, like for example, my first time to the US, I remember being really afraid going on my own because everyone talked about guns and crazy people. And
There's some
so
truth into it.
I don't know. Yeah. So I did have my reservations, but I was like, if I don't do it now, when am I ever going to do it? So yeah, I rented a car, which was really crazy at that time because considering I don't even drive at home and in the US, it's the opposite side as Singapore. So
You
it
guys
can
are
be a
the
bit,
opposite side.
yeah, we follow the UK side.
Yeah,
It was
which
really
I think is
confusing.
the oddest thing, but you think the
I
way
know.
we do it is odd.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It really took a bit of getting used to. It really is about being open to new experiences and not being afraid to meet strangers. My chances of meeting strangers had been a 50-50 split between good experiences and bad experiences.
Well, I obviously wanna hear about some of the bad, like, whether there's a
Okay.
funny story or some weird experiences, I obviously need to hear about those.
Yeah. I mean, the latest one happened in February this year. I met this person on a common digital nomad Facebook group, and I think we had been chatting. Okay, we didn't chat much, but he found out that I was actually traveling through Playa del Carmen, and that's where he was based. And he did mention that he's been following my blog and that he would love to connect because he's also building an online business. And so he invited me a couple of days to stay with him. And everything was really cordial and he was really respectful. But the day before I was supposed to fly out, I just woke up that morning and I found all of my belongings missing. So my phone, my laptop, my smartwatch, my wallet was missing.
Basically everything you
And
need, like, all your clothes can
I
stay, but
know,
you need those.
yeah, it was really strange. I mean, I only knew him for 3 days. It was
What's your
really
initial
strange.
reaction, like, or your internal feeling when
I was shocked. I was
mixed up?
hoping that it was a nightmare and I would wake up and everything would be fine again because I couldn't really explain my situation. I was sleeping. There was no break in. My friend was sleeping on the couch. I was sleeping in the room. There was no weird sound. I wasn't drunk that night that I went to bed. And we had been on a cordial relationship, but none of his valuables got stolen, even though his laptop was right beside mine in the common area. So I was super baffled. And he was really helpful to help me get things sorted, but also it did raise some suspicions because I was like, okay, I got to report to the police. And then he was like, I don't think you should do that because what if the Mexican police are all corrupt and they just want to bribe you? And also, I'm going to be a prime suspect because I was in the same place as you. So I didn't know what to make of it. He was helpful, but he was also reserved. And then he roped in a friend, and his friend was like, just get over it. It's just your belongings gone. There's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, just get over it. Don't waste a day sulking over it. But it was like my whole life, my
It's your whole
laptop, all
life,
my
it's your
work.
business, your
Yeah,
your
all my work.
connection to all of the outside world, like, you're traveling alone, it's everything to do with your income and your livelihood. I don't
Yeah, it
like
was
how
really
they made you
scary.
feel like it was no big deal.
Yeah, it was really scary. And I had to confront them because they were like, hey, you're the stranger here in Matt's house. How would we know that you're not conspiring this whole, you're not making all this thing up just to please off him? And I was
They're
like,
gaslighting you.
I know I was so overwhelmed and I was just like breaking down when I was talking to my family back home because they just had different suspicions about me.
Were they
And I had my
were
sis
you the only female here and they were all men?
yeah, they both of them were men.
So what happened after that?
He maintained his innocence and I couldn't point there wasn't real concrete evidence who stole it. I was just feeling very like I was the victim there, but
But they were making you feel like you did something wrong.
yeah, exactly. So I was really lost and alone and vulnerable. But they were like, yeah, we get how you feel and we're here to support you, whatever you need until you fly off to your next destination. And up to that point, I didn't accuse him or I didn't really pinpoint the fault on him. But through talking to different people, I mean, the story just doesn't align. And then I started blogging about it, about my horror experience. Okay, so I didn't get any of my belongings back. I had to replace all of them,
You
which
had
was
to
like,
buy all brand new, that's ridiculous. You don't have
yeah,
everything
it was a,
saved.
yes, it was a huge logistical nightmare. And I was crying, not because I lost my valuables, but because my work, I didn't back it up because I was
Of course
traveling
not.
at that point of time. Yeah, so that was the most devastating thing. And so after I got everything replaced, which was a couple weeks later, I had to really put off work, which was also another
A
complication.
nightmare.
Yeah. So after I got my stuff replaced and I started writing about it, and then I went to check his profile, I realized that I got unfriended on all the platforms that we used to be connected on, which raised even radar flags to me.
More suspicions.
Yeah. And then a few months down the road, I mean, after the blog was published and I shared it with my audience, a few months down the road, he suddenly added me on Facebook again. I ignored it. And then he sent me a message, an email, and an Instagram DM of an attorney letter saying that I am defaming him because of my blog post, which I happened to just strangle him. I mean, I spoke to some of my friends who are in the law industry. It all sounded like
Blogging is free
bullshit.
speech, right?
I know. And he didn't even have
He
a
couldn't
concrete
prove that this
case.
was about him.
Yeah, because he was accusing me of affecting his business and how he's been psychologically affected because of that blog post. But yeah, there was no concrete evidence that I could have affected his business because I kept everything but his name. So really, people couldn't really pinpoint it to him. And so
Wow,
I
it's such
ignored.
a nightmare.
Yeah, and the other thing was his letter didn't even have a letterhead. It printed off as the attorney, comma, and then the name without any other information to prove that it worked.
This is sketchy as hell.
It is for sure. And so I ignored it. He sent me a message 14 days later to, in capital letters, to remove my post. I ignored him. And so the case was closed. But yeah, this is just one of the dramas that I've had with strangers that I meet.
It's hard to trust people we know for years, let alone someone we've never met and we're only just getting to know. You never understand people's intentions or motives and
Yeah. Yeah.
and but then it's like if you never trust anyone ever, it's like what kind of life is that? But then if you
Yeah.
blindly trust everyone, it's like you can get yourself into some hot water as well. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah. So yeah, people who do travel, I think we do have an open mind with meeting people and being open to experiences. So I guess it's something that we do have to be vigilant and street smart about, which, yeah, you learn over the years how
Mhm.
to access somebody's personality and if they do have a motive or not.
That makes me so sad that none of your stuff ever came back, and the
I
fact
know.
that this guy is further trying to blame you and accusing you of defaming his character. Come on.
Yeah, this is really something. I would have never imagined it. Maybe if I was in a hostel and I left my belongings in
Yeah.
my bed or something and it was stolen, yeah, I could blame myself. But this was in a
You almost
private
feel like you were
home.
set up.
Yeah, for sure.
That's how I would feel.
Yeah, and very alone and vulnerable. And at that time, I didn't have a form of communication, so I was really struggling within myself. I didn't know what to do, but I knew that I had to move forward. I had to get stuff done instead of sulking about it.
Hindsight's 2020 at this point, but I'm sure when you were going through it, it's you feel like you're almost held hostage.
Real nightmare that I didn't want to wake up from.
I had a similar story happen to me when I went to university for my first time living in residence. there was someone going around basically because we had, like, almost like a little bit of, like, an open door parties where it's just like we were all trying to get to know each other. We were 18 years old.
Yeah.
We were like, "Yeah, like,
Oh.
party in my house, party in your room," or whatever. And I guess someone from a different university was coming through and, like, stealing everyone's, like, laptops and phones and everything.
Oh.
And, yeah, I think it was both my laptop and phone stolen within the first week or 2 of university, and it's like, I just moved away from
Oh.
home, and, like, all forms of communication were gone, and trying to navigate, like, a new city and everything with, like, no form of communication, it was pretty scary. And so I completely understand how you feel, like, and especially being in a foreign country like you were with people you don't really know. Yeah, I'd be really scared.
Yeah, and I mean, he was from the UK, so I had even less reason to guard against him at that point of time.
Yeah. Like, you felt like there was a little bit of camaraderie, like, we're kind of from somewhere similar to the world, like, I
Yeah.
trust you, like, it's not like someone from a country you've never been to and everything, but yeah, he
Yeah,
proved
and he did.
himself wrong.
Yeah, and he did hold respect for the work that I did. So, I mean, the online space is small. We're in common Facebook groups, so I
Yeah.
didn't think that he would want to risk his reputation or anything like that.
He probably didn't think you were ever gonna do anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was true that I couldn't do anything because I was gonna fly off the next day.
Mhm.
So it was like good riddance.
Yeah. But you came back
Yeah.
with a little bit of vengeance.
Yeah, I had to write about it.
Of
Couldn't just
course.
fit in.
No, no, it's very cathartic to get it out, and also it's almost like a little not that you're naming any names, but it's a little bit of a warning to other females or anyone else traveling of, like, you just don't know the company you keep sometimes.
Yeah, and all the precautions that you have to take, especially if your work is online.
Mhm, mhm. I have a few more questions for you. So
Yeah.
one question is, as a travel blogger, you're in the spotlight all the time. Everyone in the world has direct access to you. And I know there's so much hate and
Mm.
bullying and criticism that can come with that type of role. Have you experienced any of that kind of stuff before?
Yeah, I did. I was really affected by one incident where I was in the online blogging community. It's a travel blogging community, and I suddenly felt targeted by a bunch of bloggers because of some miscommunication. And so it felt like they were backstabbing me with other bloggers to come up against me. So it felt like high school
It's
all
like
over
high school
again, you
mean
know?
girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ew.
But this time it's in the online world.
In your career.
Yeah. That's why it felt particularly hard hit.
What were they ganging up on you about?
So they were saying that I wasn't doing something ethically right because we do collaborations with each other. And because I did some rehauling on my blog, some of the stuff wasn't put back up, which was part of the collaboration that I did with them. And so they were saying that, oh, because I did not keep to my end of the deal. And so I tried to explain to them that I was rehauling my blog. And so some of the stuff were removed because of that. But they were like, no, it's you did it. And so, yeah, and they started spreading it to other bloggers. And some of them, I mean, there were some bridges burned because they were just not open to hear my side of the story.
Sound like it was very gang mentality of like they already had the situation decided in their mind,
Yeah.
and they weren't willing to hear kind of your side at all.
Yeah, and this is not a situation that happens exclusively to me because there were other instances where I held my end of the deal, but the other blogger didn't. And so it happens because, you know, we constantly update our stuff and sometimes stuff gets missing or stuff gets removed. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, if they put it back up, I'm cool with that. But for them, they were determined that I was just not ethical.
Ugh, and that's a shitty feeling, like, you don't want that kind of message to get around to other groups of people because then it starts giving you a reputation that's ultimately not
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. And really, there's nothing I can do about it except just minding my own business and producing content.
It's the same advice that our moms gave to us with Mean Girls in high school. It's like,
Yeah.
ignore them, just stick to your own lane, do your own thing, and they'll
Yeah.
go away and forget about you pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, really, you can start on it or you can focus on building your own tribe and find your own supportive community, which is what I try to lean towards more. You know, supporting people who support me
Yeah, I agree with that. One of the last questions that I have for you, Isabel, is if someone is feeling unfulfilled in their career right now, as you were before you started your travel blog, what kind of advice do you have for them? And what can you say to them to kind of push them to make it a change in their life?
Growing up, I never knew what I wanted to do. So there was a lot of reflecting involved. There was a lot of elimination. So, I mean, I might not know what I want to do, but I know what I don't want to do. And from there, really just by the process of elimination and trusting the process and continuously asking yourself what sparks your joy, you can slowly come to the conclusion, or at least really narrow down your selection and start noticing what resonates with you. And so I would say it takes some time for people and it might be quicker for others, but just trust in the process and you have to take time for yourself to listen to your own voice and not just be surrounded by what other people are doing and following in their shoes or what other people tell you you should do and take the easy way out.
Ah, easier said than done, hey?
Yeah, it takes time.
And if someone wants to go traveling soon as they get fully vaccinated and everything, what destination do you recommend most to them as a single female,
Ooh.
perhaps?
I would really love to go back to New Zealand. And I feel
Mm.
that it's really therapeutic just being in the mountains and how quiet it is and how small you are in that big world over there. So for me, New Zealand does have a special place in my heart. The people there are also extremely friendly, extremely honest. You'll feel totally safe there. And you can also do it on a solo budget. It doesn't have to be expensive just because you're traveling on your own.
Mm. I think that's the thing that people are most afraid of. They think traveling is so expensive. And I'm the majority of people who say that, I'm like, no, the city that you live in every day,
Mhm.
that's expensive. Like not
Yeah.
traveling. And when people start talking about how traveling is expensive and anything they talk about something being expensive, the first thing I think to them is it's not a priority for you. If it was really a priority, you would figure out a way, you know?
Yeah. There's just an excuse for sure. I
Always
think
an excuse.
I've felt that way with Europe and US, but if you really want to make it work, you can make it work.
Agreed. And last question I have for you. If someone is interested in following along with your journey, your blog, your Instagram, everything, pimp yourself out. Where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm at bellaroundtheworld.com with a single L. And you'll be able to find me on most online platforms. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
Amazing. And last but not least, any final last words of advice for anyone listening?
I would say to not be afraid of choosing the life that you want just because things get hard. And if you really do take the courage to lead the life that you choose, you will realize that it's so much more fulfilling and enriching, and you're living every day and not just passing through it.
Amen to that. Isabel, thank you so much for your time. For the audience who didn't catch where Isabel is now, so she is traveling a little bit through Mexico as of now on her way to Colombia for the next 2 months. And then who knows where she'll find herself after that. But if you follow along with her blog and her Instagram, that's the best way to find out. So, Isabel, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure learning about your story.
Same here. It's really fun chatting with you.